Bloodborne, Dark Souls 1 and 3, Sekiro, Elden Ring. When it comes to video games, Souls-likes are my favorite genre by far. And you can't really talk about them without mentioning From Software, the pioneers behind it all, the Christopher Columbus of this genre, the chaperone of this whole spiel. Therefore, I set out on an adventure to conquer every last one. I conquered that shit like I was Thanos collecting the Infinity Stones. That is but one. You see, on my adventure, I realized something. It's not FromSoft that creates the magic. It's Miyazaki's golden touch. And that's proven through the existence of... So yeah, Dark Souls 2 is done. I finished that game and I'm never touching it again. I'm glad that I'm done with it, but I can understand finally why I put it off for so long. That shit was my soul stone. Thanos had to sacrifice his daughter to obtain it. I had to sacrifice my fucking sanity.
What? Why did you in between? What are these controls? What are these controls?
Rats and
Oh, look at this! Look at this shit! Look at this shit!
and he just
Look at this shit! Look at this shit! Look at this! Work smarter. No!
Oh,
Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here! Stupid ass boss, bro! Stupid ass boss! You're done! You're done! Your friend is dead! You're done! You're done! You're done!
imagine this guy killed you.
No way! No! No! So yeah, as you can see, Dark Souls 2 is not for the faint of heart. You need testes the size of Godzilla to even be able to fathom, just think about beating this game. Because I swear to God, I died 512 times. 90% of it was because of moments like that. It's just complete and utter bullshit. The best way to describe Dark Souls 2 is that it takes everything good that Dark Souls 1 did, shoves it up its ass, flushes it down the toilet. However, that toilet leads to like a fucking meat grinder in which you like package it up into sausages. It looks like sausages, but it's actually made out of shit. That's basically what Dark Souls 2 is, while also taking all the annoying stuff in Dark Souls 1 and just amplifying it to max. Take that annoying slider, just shove it all the way to the right. So unless you have patience like Subaru from ReZero, I do not recommend this game whatsoever, because you will be dying over and over and over and over again, just like he is. And mind you, the runbacks in this game are horrendous. Sometimes you be running back for like 5 minutes and then you die and you have to restart those 5 minutes all over again. I kid you not, throughout the course of my playthrough, I feel like I lost at least 10 years of my life playing this game. This game is so bad, it's low-key good. Yeah, I'm aware that statement does contradict itself, but Dark Souls 2 has that black magic, man. It treads the line of being so fucking bad it's good so well that I just can't help but be mesmerized by what it's been able to achieve. So it has such bad moments, such bad mechanics. It's just so ludicrously bad that it creates these situations that are so fucking funny and out of nowhere that you just can't help but kind of love it. So because of that, I honestly don't know how I'm supposed to rate Dark Souls 2. Because while yes, it's fun at times, I can objectively also recognize that it's not that great of a game from a design standpoint. I studied game design for 4 years, and boy, there's a lot in here that they told us not to do. But while that is true, I also just said that I had fun with the game. And that's kind of the whole point of games, to have fun. So, is it a bad game if it's able to let me have fun? I don't even fucking know at this point.
But I'm just gonna go ahead and call it a bad game. It's just so bad that it's good. That's pretty much how you sum it up. Like, imagine if you went to a haunted carnival run by a group of sad clowns. You can feel the effort, the atmosphere is thick, and everything is in place for it to be scary, but it's just not. Somehow that's basically what Dark Souls 2 feels like. It feels like all throughout the game, it's trying to convince itself that it is in fact a Dark Souls game. All the while it's tripping and falling under its own shoe and just makes a whole big mess everywhere. So let's start with the combat, which is pretty much the bread and butter of every Souls game. Just imagine the tight precision of Dark Souls 1, but now you're doing it with weight straps to your ankles and a slight delay on every dodge. The basic movement alone is just so goddamn clunky, and I swear to God, trying to hit something in this game feels like trying to win a 50-50 on a gacha game. It's so ridiculous.
And these two aspects are a completely separate issue from the next complaint I have, which is the adaptability stat. Now, I get what they were going for in concept because it does sound cool and maybe smart, but they completely missed on the execution of this mechanic. You see, if you didn't know, in Dark Souls 2, you don't have the same amount of iframes as you do in the other games.
Because all of those iframes are instead allocated to this one stat called adaptability. So at level 1 adaptability, you basically have 6 frames of invincibility in Dark Souls 2 compared to the standard 11 frames of the other games.
Now, not only does it affect how much invincibility frames you get as you dodge in this game, but it also determines how fast you're able to drink your Estus, which is so incredibly stupid. Basically, whenever you're at low health in this game and you want to take a sip of your juice to not die, you know what it's typically used for, don't do it, because chances are you will die, because your character stands there for a solid 5 seconds like he's been traversing the Sahara Desert and just found fucking oasis of lemonade. He just stands there and delects that shit like he's an anime protagonist powering up as his enemies are watching on the other side and letting him do it. Spoiler alert, that's not happening here. They are going to fuck you in the ass and you will die.
And on top of that, they separated your equipment load from correlating to your endurance. It became its own stat, which is vitality. So if you don't really want to get gangbanged here, you have to upgrade your vigor, your endurance, your vitality, and your adaptability. 4 stats just to make the game bearable. And that severely impacts how you're able to make your builds, because you can't really focus on what you want to build until you can get to a point where you can actually survive.
I just don't know how I can call Dark Souls 2 a good game when it can't even get the fundamental basics of its movement down. I know I'm kind of putting the game through the shitter right now, but there were actually stuff that had a lot of potential and that they actually did well in the game. I think the Memories of the Giants, for example, that was a really cool concept, and the whole thing felt really cinematic. It was something very unique that I haven't seen in any other Souls game, and I think they executed that pretty well. Aside from that, you have the bosses, which obviously are the main attraction of these Souls games. And for the most part, 90% of the bosses in Dark Souls 2 are absolute stinkers. I'm talking balls to the wall, abyss tier level garbage. For example, if you don't believe me, one of the bosses is an army of rats. Another boss is a big toxic rat with a bunch of little mini rats that all give toxicity. You die in 2 hits pretty much. And sometimes it just feels like they gave up on the boss designs. They put their hands in the air and said, well, there's no more juice in my noggin, so what can we do to fill in this gap? Oh, I know, we'll copy-paste a boss from Dark Souls 1. I kid you not, they actually took bosses from the previous game, Control-C, Control-V'd into this game. For example, they took the stone gargoyle fight from Dark Souls 1 and said, well, we can't just copy-paste this, so what can we do to make this Dark Souls 2? Oh, I know, we'll add an extra one on top. And just when you think it can't get worse than that, it somehow does. Remember, this is Dark Souls 2 we're talking about, okay? They are the Aeon of surprises. So, they take Ornstein from Dark Souls 1 and make him a boss. Oh my god! Oh my god, he's a genius! I'm just trying to imagine what their thought process was behind this. Like, I'm just imagining FromSoft headquarters, the boss is in front of his whiteboard with his fucking stick. Okay guys, what can we do to make a cool boss design for this area? Any thoughts? And some random rookie, like his fucking internship guy, he's like, what if we take Ornstein from Dark Souls 1 and make him a boss? My guy probably said that as a joke, expecting a couple sarcastic cheers, hoorahs, and maybe a couple laughs, but old peanut brain boss over there took it seriously, and somehow, some way, through some godforsaken miracle, it went through the design chain process, and here we have this joke of a boss somehow making its way into Dark Souls 2. I mean, I guess that's pretty much how Dark Souls 2 was created to begin with. However, even though it does have some, let's just say, low lows, that's putting it lightly, but even though it does have that in terms of its boss design, it actually does have some pretty high peaks. You see, my biggest problem with Dark Souls 1, the first game, was that it didn't have any good bosses. Maybe except for the DLC, which had Artorias and Manus and Calamite, but even then, those bosses weren't extraordinary. They were just meh at best. However, in Dark Souls 2, they actually had a couple bosses in there that exceeded any boss in Dark Souls 1. And I think they did those very, very well. For example, we have Sir Alone. A very cool boss, very obviously samurai-esque, but his moveset, his music, everything about that screamed Dark Souls 3, and it was just phenomenal. And then you have the Fume Knight. Again, another very sick fight. I just love how he's dual wielding a claymore and a normal sword at the same time. I think it's a really cool combo and leads to some really cool mix-ups and patterns that are honestly kind of challenging to figure out at first. I even found myself enjoying the Smelter Demon fights quite a bit, so there are a handful of bosses in Dark Souls 2 that are definitely worth checking out, but unfortunately most of them are just unforgettable slop. And yes, I said unforgettable on purpose, not an accident, because they are unforgettable in the sense that they will make you want to kill yourself because of how bullshit they are, so you just will never forget that experience.
I genuinely believe at this point that the game's core development philosophy was make 99% of everything tedious and 1% genius. And that's proven through pretty much every single avenue of their design. 99% of the bosses suck, 1% are amazing. 99% of the areas suck, 1% are amazing. 99% of the environmental design sucks, but 1% is amazing. And it's yada yada yada, you get the point. It just baffles me how they can make such gorgeous sceneries like this, and areas like Drenglade Castle, which were pretty fun to explore and get through, but then dump you on the other side with places like the frigid outskirts.
Kudos to whoever designed this area, man, because I don't think I've ever seen such a perfect and immaculate representation of Helheim in any fictional setting ever. This truly was hell. And I don't mean that in an environmental sense because of what it looks like. I'm talking about in the sense that it makes the players experience hell itself. This area is by far one of the worst areas, if not the worst area I've ever experienced in gaming history. Like, I'm genuinely impressed by how shit this area is. How can anybody conceive of anything so bad? Not only are there no checkpoints in this area, not only is the visibility basically 0 90% of the time, not only do you have mobs chasing your ass that you can't outrun, not only is there nothing in the area, on top of all that, the boss at the end, the thing that will make everything worth it, supposedly, is just a reskin of another boss in that same DLC, except they added another one on top of that. This area is so horrendously bad, I'd actually consider it a form of self-harm. Because there's nothing you're getting out of it at the end. There's no cool boss, no cool weapons, no cool items, no cool nothing. Not even a cool area to look at. So there's no reason why you would subjugate yourself to this horrible experience, this torture. You're not getting anything, except maybe wasting your time and your sanity, but that's pretty much it. I swear to God, whoever designed this area is either the spawn of Satan, or they just hate video games altogether, because there's no other conceivable way how a game designer would create such a stupid... Yeah, I think I already got my feelings across pretty well, I'd say. If you love yourself in any sort of way, just stay clear of that area. Go the furthest direction from it possible. You will not be the same person as you first came in. I guarantee you that.
At this point, we're 14 minutes into the video, and I don't think I've even touched the tip of the iceberg on my problems with this game. So let me just spitfire some stuff really quickly. The final boss of this whole experience, complete and utter joke. That was the most forgettable and anticlimactic boss fight, or final boss fight I should say. I don't even consider it a boss fight, to be honest. It was so easy and disappointing. If you told me right now that this was the tutorial boss, I would believe you in a heartbeat. So yeah, I don't know what more I can say about this boss, is just whatever. Now, unfortunately, I did miss the secret final boss, which was Aldia, but even then, from what I saw, it has better build up, and I think it reflects the themes of the series better, but still the fight wasn't a Slave Knight Gale or Soul of Cinder, you know what I mean? And that extends to the NPCs as well, because I feel like there's just far too many being introduced. In every single area you go to, there's at least one or two that you meet, so it just becomes impossible to manage every single one. I'd much rather they take the handful we have right now and focus on those instead of introducing new NPCs in every single area, diluting the whole experience. Though there were a couple in there that I actually liked, like Lucatiel. But the default merchant didn't change at all from my experience, nor did the cat or really any of the default NPCs. So was there a quest in there that I missed? I didn't even know how to progress those quests if there were.
Now, the last thing I want to touch on before ending this video and rating Dark Souls 2 are the branches of yore, because I don't feel like they're talked about enough for how horrendously stupid of an idea they are. So throughout your playthrough, if you didn't know, you will find these statues that are essentially cock-blocking you from entering the next area or exploring the region while you're there. Now, the reason for that is because you need a branch of yore to get rid of that statue and progress on. So look, I get what they were going for. They were trying to incentivize exploration and looking through every nook and cranny and then going back and re-exploring that area. I get that. But it's so obnoxiously annoying when every single time, like, it happens so often that is just to the point where I'm losing my mind. I want to explore that area while I'm there. I don't want to come back to this area and re-explore it again to get some dumbass item, loot, or whatever, just because I didn't have a branch of yore at that time. It's just a really stupid idea, but I wouldn't have a problem with it if it didn't happen so often. And this extends also as well to the Pharaoh's locks. You basically kind of the same mechanic. You will find this fucking face on the wall or something, and you go up to it and you need a Pharaoh's lock to unlock like a secret door or a secret area, and it'll do something secret. But the number of Pharaoh's locks does not coincide with the number of Pharaoh's keys. So basically, you could run out and you won't be able to open any of the other doors. You just be stuck there wondering what's on the other side. Oh, I guess I have to do a new playthrough. Nobody's doing that shit. They want to do everything on their first one. Why are you forcing the player to go back and replay the game when they don't want to do that? If they don't want to do that. You see what I mean? Like, Dark Souls 2 has so many cool concepts, but just fails on the execution. They do a lot of unique things that you don't see in any other Soul series. But unfortunately, they always just fall flat and make the whole experience more frustrating more than anything. There's still a buttload of things I didn't mention, like the enemies, the bonfire placements, and etc. But I don't want to keep on rambling and bashing Dark Souls 2. So let's just get on with the rating.
Dark Souls 2 tries to make an imitation of what Miyazaki was able to achieve and does succeed in some senses, but more often than not fails to live up to the expectations of its players and be a successor to its predecessor, Dark Souls 1. While I do appreciate the risk they took in giving us these new mechanics that can't be found in any other game, it unfortunately came at the detriment of the overall gaming experience. With that being said, here's my rating for Dark Souls 2. Is Dark Souls 2 FromSoft's worst Souls game? Yes. Is it the worst game of all time? Hell no. But is it the most annoying game of all time? Probably. So did it actually deserve all the backlash it's been getting throughout all these years? To an extent, yes, but it's also quite a bit overblown. But the question remains, is it actually a bad game? Well, I think the only one that can decide that is you yourselves, but in my experience, I do think that it is a bad game that has fun moments that are brought about because of its absurdly bad and poorly made mechanics and systems, not because the game is actually well made, which is why I'm giving it a score of 3.5 out of 10. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with my opinion or my score? Do you disagree? What did you love about Dark Souls 2 or what did you hate about it? Let me know down in the comments below. Well, that's pretty much it for this video. If you liked it, like it, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I will see you all in the next one. See ya!
hand. What the? That makes no sense to me. Like, dude, with my right hand, I feel like I can fucking like beat up Superman. Okay, with my with my left hand, it's like I would never even toddler with it.
No,
No way.
no, no!
Run! 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 Leave him! Leave him alone! Leave him alone! Let him run! Let him run! Let him run! This game! Oh my god!